Thank you for having Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Elizabeth Ochoa. I am a West Valley Financial Aid System Specialist, but tonight I am not representing West Valley. I am representing financial aid as a whole. And the information that I provide to you tonight will be applicable to any college system that you are applying to. So tonight's agenda, we're going to be covering types of financial aid, application process, calculating eligibility, awarding and packaging, and what happens if you have special circumstances or things change after you've submitted the FAFSA. So we'll go over all of those things tonight. As I mentioned, the financial aid information I'm providing is applicable to any of the college systems that you are applying to, whether it's in-state, out-of-state, public or private. All of the colleges recommend that you submit a financial aid application so that way we can consider you for financial aid, because as you could see in this slide, it gets costly to attend college. And as you might imagine, this is not 4 years. This is the sticker amount for cost of attendance for 1 year. And that's for this current year. And trends show that college costs will increase approximately $2,000 to $3,000 per year because of inflation, because of cost of living. We will adjust the cost of attendance to ensure that your student is receiving the resources and the funding that they will need to survive while they're attending their college of choice for the year. So why does it cost so much? Again, inflation, we are all dealing with that right now, but so are the other costs associated with attending school. So it's not just the tuition and fees, but it's books and supplies, transportation, housing, and personal expenses like shampoo and conditioner, razors, food, things that you as a parent would typically help to provide your student. Now they're going to be away off to college, and financial aid is going to try to help ensure that you know how much they're going to need to survive for the year, and then help to supplement what you can't provide to them for all of these various expenses. So we are considering all of the costs as a whole. So it gives you a little bit more understanding of why the costs will look so high. And as you could see, every college will set their own cost of attendance for the year. Now, the federal government says that it's basically the family's responsibility to pay for the student's education to the extent that you are financially able. But how do you really decide what financially able means? Do you get to decide? No, not really. The federal government says that they will help you to determine how much you can realistically contribute to those costs of attending the college of choice by submitting a FAFSA application or a California DREAM Act application. And this will have you answer lots of questions, and that way we can create a formula to help determine what you can reasonably contribute to those costs. This is an example of one particular student who was debating which college system, which college to attend. They were accepted to multiple schools, but this was the top 3, being that it was close by and had the programs that they were wanting. And the student was, kind of determining which would be the best fit for them and what would be good cost savings for them. So we have 3 different options here: Santa Clara, San Jose State, and West Valley College. You see that the cost of attendance was provided by each school in an award notification. They were given an EFC from the application that they submitted through the FAFSA, and the remaining need is what the financial aid office is going to provide to the student to help them attend that particular college. So as you see in these examples, the cost of attendance does vary from college to college and college system. But the constant in all of these equations is the EFC. The EFC will not change just because the school that you're applying to is more costly. So when your counselors and your career technicians say, shoot for the stars, go for that dream school, this is why. Because the financial aid office at that particular school is going to try to help meet your needs so you can attend that school without any reservation. Now, how do we meet the need? How do you get the funds to pay for all of these costs? We have 3 different pots of money that we use to award your students. One pot is from the federal government, Department of Education. We have a second pot from the California Student Aid Commission. And the third is from the institutional funds themselves. So each college has a foundation, alumni that donate to the college so that they can feed back into the college and provide incentives to the students to come to their school and receive their scholarship funding or merit-based funding. So we're working with 3 different pots of money in essence, and of those, the first pot of federal funds, we have different awards that we can offer to your students based on some varying eligibility criteria. So you don't have to know all of the names by heart. I just wanted to give you some reference points. And we do the calculation for you. When you submit that one financial aid application, the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, we're going to be considering you for all of these different pots of money and awards. And then we notify your student of which programs they were eligible for and how much they're going to be receiving from each of these programs. So some examples here, Pell Grant. This is a grant, it's free money that you don't have to pay back. That is looking at the EFC and enrollment. SCOG is looking at whether or not you received the Pell Grant and your enrollment. Chafee is a program that we offer to students who are or were foster youth. Work study and student loans. I have a few slides about those, so I can go in a little bit more detail because they're wonderful programs. Federal Work Study is a campus-based program. So the federal government gives us money for this particular program, and then the campus will match the funds so we can provide an opportunity for your students to work on campus, get some hands-on experience. So some on the field training to coincide with what they're learning in class. We try to get them to connect with the department that they're majoring in. But sometimes a student says, you know what, I think working in another department slightly different than my major is beneficial because I get some other foundational tools and experience. So we connect with the student and the supervisors and we help them to find a good fit for them. They work for the year and it's wages are higher than minimum wage, anywhere between $18 to $25 an hour. And we recommend that the student work between 18 to 20 hours so that they can still have enough time to study and get some rest, right? This program is for undergraduate and graduate students alike, and it is a need-based program, but the money that they get from this program, it's earned. So again, they don't have to pay it back. Oftentimes when we hear about financial aid, parents and students automatically think about loans. But as you can see, there's a lot of different programs that we're going to be considering you for that are free, that you don't have to pay back. However, loans is part of financial aid, and it's a great resource for the students to help supplement their need, or maybe they had a very high EFC. not eligible for any of the need-based programs, but they still have to contribute to the household, or they're living on their own and they need to make ends meet. So the loans is a great resource for them to help them with those varying costs. We do have 3 different types of loans that a student and the parents can choose from. Subsidized is need-based loans. The interest is paid by the federal government while they are in school, but repayment will start 6 months after they graduate or drop below half time. Unsubsidized loans are not need-based. So again, this gives those students who need to help contribute to their own educational expenses can opt to use this as well. They pay the interest or add it to the principal balance, and that begins to accrue at the time they receive their first payment. And then the third option is a parent loan for undergraduate students. It's an unsubsidized loan, so it's a subset of the unsubsidized loan for parents of undergrads, and can borrow up to the cost of attendance. However, we never recommend that. You borrow what you need, because again, we don't want you to get into more debt than you need. And this interest rate is a little bit higher than the student's interest rate, but typically the interest rates vary from year to year and are between 4.5% to 6%. So for the longest time, maybe 10 years, it stayed at like a 4.6%. And then it's gradually started to go up, but it hasn't reached above the 6% yet. So fingers crossed, we won't see that interest rate go up anymore.
Liz, we do have a question on,
Yes,
yeah, I don't know if you want to pause here really quick or if you want
sure.
to ask that question a little bit later.
Um, let's see. Is the EFC listed on the FAFSA the same EFC that will be applicable for all college that I apply to? Yes, that is correct. At the end of the FAFSA application, when you submit, the confirmation page will provide you the EFC dollar amount. And that is what the colleges use to determine your eligibility for all of these programs. And each college will do their own calculations. Great question. In addition to the federal programs and pot of money, we also have the state aid programs. So they are so generous in the state of California, and they want to entice your students to stay in California for school and work and have their families here. So we're investing early, and we provide consideration of the California College Promise Grant, which is another way of saying fee waiver. Basically, if you're coming to California Community College and are eligible for this California College Promise Grant, we will cover the cost of your tuition. And that way, the other financial aid programs that you're awarded is applied to the other costs of living. Okay. The California College Promise Program is a first year and second year free program that the state of California offers to students who are coming to community college. And then we have another slide that gives a little bit more detail. Each of the California College Promise, each of the California College provide a version of this first and second year free program. So if you're thinking about attending a California community college, you definitely want to look at the financial aid websites of each of those schools that you're considering to see their program description and eligibility criteria. In addition to those 2 programs, the state also offers a Cal Grant A, B, or C program. So that depending on the university that you attend or the major that you're selecting, they will provide you a Cal Grant. Um, and if you also get the Cal Grant and are attending more than 12 units, you will be considered for the Student Success Completion Grant. So it's up to an additional $8,000 a year, which is an amazing contribution to the costs. However, if you are attending a four-year program, or excuse me, a four-year school, then we would also be considering you for a middle class scholarship or the Blue and Gold Opportunity plan to help reduce the tuition and the fees. I see we have another question. What is the max annual income that we can have to be eligible for these financial aid programs? So great question. We do not have a maximum income or asset ceiling for general financial aid. What we recommend you do is apply for financial aid, and we'll look at not only your income and assets, but also household information. Again, we put all of those questions from the application into a formula, which gives us your EFC, or the EFC is an abbreviation for expected family contribution. So we're looking at percentages of your income, percentages of the assets. We're looking at whether you are close to retirement, if you have a family with, how many dependents, do you have students who are already in college in addition to your current senior who's planning for college. We're looking at all of those variables. So again, there's no cap. We just advise all of our families to apply for financial aid. Great question. So in addition to the state funding and the federal funding, as I mentioned, we do participate in the College Promise, but our institutions also contribute to those programs. So for instance, if you're looking at coming to one of the neighboring community colleges, San Jose City, Mission College, De Anza, Foothill, West Valley, we all have a first and second year free program. And we utilize the California College Promise program and supplement with some of our own institutional funds to ensure that we are awarding as many students as possible with this great resource. So I do have a slide about community grant at West Valley, and this is for our incoming graduates of class of 23. And we offer up to $3,000 per year. So let me go back. Most of our first year and second year free programs require that you apply for financial aid, but we don't look at the EFC. We don't necessarily look at the need. Some may not. West Valley's does not. So even if you have no need, your EFC is $1 under a million. Because you submitted the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application and are coming to West Valley College as an incoming freshman, we will automatically consider you for this program and give you up to $3,000 for the year to help with your varying costs. And maybe you'll get other financial aid offers as well, depending on that EFC. But it's a great resource to help reduce your costs for the first 2 years. So if you have more questions about that, you can feel free to email me and I can provide you more information, or you can go to the website of the neighboring community colleges to see more details about their program. Another great resource are scholarships. Scholarships are a great way to reduce your costs or contribution to the costs. And scholarships can really vary across the board between dollar amounts, criteria and eligibility, and they can come from different places. Your community organizations, maybe your HR department offers scholarships to the graduating seniors, government agencies, the colleges themselves that you're applying to, and other merit-based, need-based programs such as a CSS profile. And I'll refer to that in another slide. But scholarships are, again, a great way to meet your need. And there is no limit to how many scholarships you can apply for. You have some great resources available to you. Your counselors do a great job of doing some of that legwork for you, and they post scholarships available on, is it Naviance or School Loop, Danielle?
We use Naviance.
Naviance, perfect. So definitely take the time to look at that site, look at what scholarships have been posted, and apply, apply, apply. Avoid the scams. So if you're doing searches on your own, if they're asking for a fee to apply, don't do it. It's typically a scam.
We will also use the class Canvas to post about scholarships or other financial aid that we're receiving from outside resources.
Wonderful. Thank you. You can also look at, as I mentioned, the college's websites. They offer not only institutionally funded scholarships, but also post some vetted scholarship organizations for external scholarship offerings. You can also look at immigrantrising.org. It's a great resource. They do a lot of vetting in their searches and post the scholarships that are from a reliable source, and they don't ask for citizenship or social security numbers. So they're highly secure and reliable scholarship organizations. As I mentioned, some of you that are applying to some public and private colleges may also be asked to submit the CSS profile. This is not a free application and not a scam. It is a $25 online registration fee and $16 per school. So you definitely want to check to see if the college that you're applying to will require this for their merit-based funding or institutionally based funding. This is in addition to the federal and state funds that you would be considered for by submitting the FAFSA or DREAM Act application. It opened October 1st, and they do have some really great tutorial options, a chat, and there's also the phone and email helpline that you can utilize as well. This is a screenshot of the CSS profile, and the link to the site is at the top of the slide for your reference. Being that it does cost to apply, they also provide a fee waiver consideration. So if you earn 100,000 or less, you can definitely apply for that waiver. And you can find that in the middle of that site there. Okay. Much like the CSS profile, the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application opened October 1st. So this presentation was provided early for you, so that way you have some time to prepare for the application submittal process. We want you to get familiar with the application, get your questions answered before submitting. Priority deadline is typically March 2nd. However, some of the colleges do ask for the application to be submitted earlier. So again, we provide this presentation early on, so you have time to ask your questions and submit the deadline, submit the application before the deadline. Students, I recommend that you schedule a meeting with your parents to submit this application together. Sit down at the computer or laptop together. You'll schedule about 45 to an hour and make it an annual reoccurrence. because every year you're in college, you're wanting to renew this application for reconsideration of the various programs, because we know that things can change. And right now, when you're submitting this application, we're looking at 2021 taxes and income information. And again, that can change for next year. So you want to renew every year for reconsideration. So now what we're going to do is we're going to transition into the application process and take a look at some of the screenshots of the application itself, again, to get you a little bit more familiarized with those applications. Now, I mentioned that there are two forms that you would be submitting um, to be considered for financial aid. One is the FAFSA, the other is a California DREAM Act application. Now, you would only do one of these applications. You wouldn't do both. The FAFSA is for students who are US citizens or permanent residents or asylees. If you don't have your citizenship or permanent residency yet, maybe you're in between the process of getting your asylum granted, or maybe your visa has expired, but you haven't yet gotten your permanent residency, but you lived in California and attended a California school for at least 3 years, graduating from a California high school, you can submit a California DREAM Act application to be considered for the state funding. So again, you do the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application to be considered for the respective programs. Okay. FAFSA and the DREAM Act application have exactly the same questions. The difference here is that the FAFSA is being processed by the federal student aid, whereas the California DREAM Act application is being processed by the California Aid Commission. We do not share the information with the federal government. It is kept highly secure and confidential. So there are no worries between us sharing information. The same with the FAFSA. We don't share the FAFSA with any other entity or department, even within the campus. So we take your personal information and we keep it secure and confidential at all times. So if you're in question of which application to do, the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, you can start with the California DREAM Act application, and it gives a survey to determine which application is appropriate. It'll say stop and continue with the FAFSA, or it'll say proceed with the California DREAM Act submission. So I would say if you're not sure where you are in this process, definitely start with the California DREAM Act application and then proceed from there. Or you can contact me and I can help you determine which application is right for you. Okay. So we're going to look at some screenshots. For those of you who are going to be submitting the FAFSA, you're going to go to fafsa.gov and you're going to start a new FAFSA for your graduating senior. And I recommend that because this is for the graduating seniors' educational costs, I always recommend that the student be the one to be at the driver's seat, that they would be the ones to take reins of the keyboard and start the application with parent next to them. Because at one point, as you're going to see in a few slides, the student will enter their information and then it'll ask for parent information. So we'll just slide the keyboard over to proceed with the application questions. But for now, we're going to start with the student, and the student is going to select the first bubble that says, I am a student and want to access the FAFSA form. You will then see a pop-up that says either log in or create an FSA ID. So again, being that this is the first time your student is applying for financial aid, they want to create an FSA ID. The FSA ID is going to take some personal information, your email, date of birth, social, and some challenge questions. And it will create an FSA username and password. Now, this will replace your social security number and a wet signature moving forward. So it's a one-time ask, and you don't have to use your social and signatures in the future. This FSA ID will take over from here. Parents, you will also need to create an FSA ID as a form of signing your student's FAFSA. Okay, and you can do it now at this point. So your student creates their FSA ID, username and password, and then you start a new can start and create a new FSA ID for you, the parent. Now, only one parent needs to create the FSA ID. So the one who is readily available should be the one to do that. Okay. After you've created the username and password, students, you are going to type in the username and password that you just created and then select login. Then it will ask you which application you are going to start with. Students, typically I would say start with the upcoming academic year, which is the 2023 and 24 FAFSA form. But if you are going to be starting during the summer to take maybe an orientation class, a PE class, maybe you're going to be joining our water polo team or soccer team, and you're going to start classes and training in the summer, then you also want to do the 2022-23 FAFSA application. So you would start with that form, submit it, wait 48 hours, and then come back and submit the 2023-24 form. So it's a renewal application. So you're not having to start from scratch again, but you're just updating the information to reflect the 23-24 year. Okay. Then from there, it's going to ask you to create a save key. And the save key can be 4 numbers to 8 numbers. And this is, again, enhancing our security levels. So if you have to stop for whatever reason, take a break, get some water, you can save and log out. And then when you're ready to sign in again, you sign in with your FSA username and password and the save key. So that way you can resume the FAFSA application securely. Students, when you start filling out the application, you're going to come to the personal information for you, the student, and you will see that your social security number, first name, and last name, and the date of birth is pre-filled from the FSA username and password creation. So make sure that you're using your full legal name in that creation, so when it transfers over to your FAFSA, it will all match and carry over correctly. Okay. If for whatever reason you used your nickname in that FSA username creation, when it carries over to the FAFSA, it'll create some issues with the matching from Social Security Administration or the Department of Homeland Security, and it will delay the process of your application. So you want to make sure you're using your full legal name as it appears on your documentation, okay? It's fixable, but it'll just delay the process. So just make sure that you're doing all of your checks and making sure that you're populating that information correctly, okay? Next, students, what is your educational goals? What will your high school completion status be when you begin college in the 2023-24 school year? You're going to select high school diploma. Although you have not yet graduated, that will have occurred by the time that you start college classes. Okay, and then we're going to skip down to what will your college grade level be when you begin the 2023-24 school year. You're going to select never attended college first year. Now, some of you might be participating in the dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment programs. However, because you have not yet graduated high school, you're still considered a first year student. And we want you to make sure that you select that appropriately. So if you are anticipating to attend a community college, we can then consider you for the first and second year free programs. Okay. The next section, students, you're going to indicate the high school that you're graduating from. So you can select the state and city, or you can just type in the high school name and do your search. And you will get the pop-up box that provides your closest match to what you typed in. Once you find your school, Branham High School, you select it and then continue. And then you're going to indicate the colleges that you will be applying to. Okay. You want to list each individual college that you're considering. If you're applying to multiple UCs and you're using a common app, that differs from the FAFSA. You're using one app for the UCs, but in the FAFSA, as I mentioned earlier, we don't share with other entities. So you want to list each UC that you're applying to separately. You want to list each CSU separately, and so on. At this point, you can list up to 10 colleges. Okay, so my recommendation is that your first selection and entry be the highest costing California college. So we can consider you for the maximum amount of Cal Grant. However, again, if you change schools and go to another college in California, the CSAC, California Student Aid Commission, will get notification of that and will be able to adjust the amounts accordingly. Then number 2 on the list is any other college with an earlier deadline. After that, you indicate the earliest deadline schools. You can list them in any order because they won't know what ranking they were put in. They won't know that they came after their competitor school. They won't even see the other colleges listed. So you don't need to worry about ranking. Just list your top 10 schools that have the earliest deadline, and the first being a California college. Okay, we're going to continue with the FAFSA application, and then at the end, I'll show you how to add more colleges if you are applying to more than 10 colleges. Okay. Now, for these first 10 schools, you want to list the housing arrangements. Are you going to live on campus with parent or off campus? If you're not sure, I recommend that you just indicate off campus because that tends to be the more costly option. And we can go ahead and provide you with the highest cost of attendance to then award your maximum financial aid package. Of course, if you know that you're going to be living on campus, then definitely select that option. Okay, now students, we are going to ask you a series of questions to help us determine if parent information is needed. So the first question, students, what is your marital status as of today? Now, I'm sure you're all chuckling, even though I can't see or hear you. But remember, this FAFSA application or DREAM Act application is renewable every year that you're in school. So at some point down the road, when you're renewing this application for your graduate work, you might be married or maybe have kids at that point, so that you would then update that marital status. But as of today, you could definitely select single. And then you'll see the next series of questions pop up. Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces? Are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? At any time since you turned age 13, were both of your parents deceased? Were you in foster care? Or were you a dependent or ward of the court? As determined by a court in California, are you or were you an emancipated minor? An emancipated minor is a student who has gone through the court to legally separate themselves from their parent. Okay. Does someone other than your parent or step parent have legal guardianship of you as determined by a court in the state of legal residence or California? So you would check any of the boxes that apply to you, or if none of them apply, you would select none of the above. If you select none of the above, you will receive the next set of questions. This is a smart form, so depending on how you answer a particular question, it will determine if any additional questions are needed or if they will be removed or skipped. Okay, so the next set of questions, do you have or will you have a child? Again, this is referring to the graduating senior. Senior, do you now have or will have children who will receive more than half of their support from you between July 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2023? Yes or no? Again, graduating senior, do you have dependents other than child or spouse who live with you and who will receive more than half of their support from you now and through June 30th of 2023? Yes or no? If you say no, the next question will appear. On or after July 1st, 2022, were you homeless or were you self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? Again, not in the care of your parent or guardian, but on your own, trying to find somewhere to stay. Maybe staying with friends, or in a transitional shelter, things of that nature. So yes or no, and then hit continue. Based how you answered those particular questions, it will tell you whether you are a dependent student and ask for parent information, or it'll say you are considered an independent student. Would you like to skip over parent information? Okay, majority of you will be selecting no's to all of those questions, and thus will ask for parent information. Again, if the parent was not able to meet your scheduled meeting to submit this FAFSA because they were going on vacation, you can just reschedule that meeting and wait for them to come back from their vacation to submit this FAFSA application with their information. Okay, so then you would select continue. And then at this point, you're going to take that keyboard or laptop and slide it over to your parent to help you answer the next set of questions. So parents, your turn. As of today, what is the marital status of the parents? You have a drop-down selection option of married, remarried, divorced, separated, widowed, unmarried, single, or unmarried but living together. Okay, so based on how you answer that question, it will then ask for either anniversary date and both parents' information or just one parent's information. Okay. For those of you who are questioning which parent information to provide, we do have a flow chart here for you that you can reference. And it just gives you some yes or no questions to help you determine which parent information is needed. Okay, in particular, parents who are divorced or separated. We understand that this can be a challenging time, and especially when it comes to financial aid questions, you may ask, which parent should I be providing the information for on my FAFSA? So typically the rule of thumb is whomever the student is living with majority of the year. If it's truly a 50-50 split, then we would say who is receiving the child support, and that parent would be the one to provide their information on the FAFSA. If it's a 50-50 split of living and expenses, there is no child support agreement or being exchanged, then you can decide which parent information is going on the FAFSA. You could do rock, paper, scissors, or who's just more readily available to answer the questions and fill out the FAFSA with a student at that particular time. So it would be up to your determination, okay? But the flow chart is there to assist you if you need it. Okay, so continuing with parent information, how many other dependent children do the parents have? So include the other dependent children or siblings of the graduating senior, and will rely on the financial support of the parents between July 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024. Okay, so you can add on an additional, and there is no cap here. So how many ever children that you have that you're supporting, go ahead and answer that in there. But do not include the student, the graduating senior of whom you're filling out this FAFSA for. They automatically assume them in the count. Okay, and you'll see that in the next slide. How many other dependents do the parents have? So we would want you to consider anyone who is living with the parent, who is maybe a niece, nephew, a grandparent, who is living in the home. Your parents are supporting financially 50% or more. Okay. So the graduating senior's parents have more than just the children in the home. How many you can indicate here. Okay, and hit continue. It'll give you a summary of what you've indicated. So it will determine the household size. So let's say you indicated one additional dependent and one other dependent other than a child, so maybe a grandparent, and it does the math. So it assumed the student, the graduating senior, it assumed the parent number based on the marital status question, and then it added in your responses to the previous two questions to equal 5. Okay, and then out of the 5, or out of the 3 dependents indicated, how many will be in college between July 1st, 2023 and June 30th of 2024? Again, do not include the parents, but do include the student and the other household members, okay? So if it's just your graduating senior, you're just gonna put 1 there and then hit continue. Now we're going to move into the parent tax questions. So parents, have you filed for 2021? You're going to use the drop-down box to make your selection of either already completed, will file, or not going to file. And if you did file, what type of tax return did you submit? You can use, again, the drop-down box to make your selection. In this scenario or this sample, the parent had submitted an IRS 1040 form. And then it asks what was the marital status. So if you selected in the previous page that the parents are married, and here you filed married filing jointly, you can proceed to use the IRS data retrieval tool. It's a wonderful tool. It helps to populate the tax questions on your behalf. So basically you're going to the IRS database, and it's going to populate all these questions for you based on your submittal of the 1040 form. And to log into that database, you would use your FSA username and password. So which parent received that FSA username and password, select parent 1 or parent 2 and hit continue. continue, and then verify the first name, last name, the last 4 digits of the social, date of birth, and merit filing status, and the street address that you used on the 1040 form. Okay, then you're going to hit submit. And again, it's going to tell you which questions it's populating for. You check the box that says transfer now. Okay. And again, then it will, sorry, the sensors just went off. So pardon the blacked out room. So now parents, if you have 2 parents in the household, we want you to differentiate between the earnings. So parent 1, what was your wages earned from work? And parent 2, what was your wages earned from work? Okay, and hit continue. I'm going to, if you can just excuse me, I'm going to turn the lights on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. It was a little too dark for my comfort. Okay.
You've got one question in the Q&A.
Okay, great. Where do you put the 529 account information? Great question. You're going to see that in the next slide. Perfect timing. So parents, the next question related to your income and assets. Do you want to skip the remaining questions about your income and assets? You're going to select no here. And this is again for consideration of the Cal Grant and SSCG program. You could skip it, but then they would contact you and ask you to fill it in. And we don't want you to have any delays in the processing and consideration of awards. So go ahead and say no and continue, so that way we can get the information inputted up front and again expedite the processing of your eligibility for those various programs. So parents, as of today, what is the total current balance of cash, savings, and checking accounts? Now you see here it asks for father's total. However, this was a scenario where the student indicated that the parents were separated and it was only asking for the one parent information. However, if you are married or remarried, then we want both parents' information. So if you have 2 different checking accounts and savings accounts, you want to add them up together and put it into this one box. Now, if you are filling out this application and you just got paid, you don't want to put the total amount that was deposited from your payroll department. You want to subtract your monthly living expenses, and what will be left over is what you would put in this box. The next question, as of today, what is the net worth of the parents' investments? Okay, so let's see, what is an investment? Okay, so real estate, not the home you live in, but any additional real estate that you might have, you would take the total current market value of that property or properties and subtract any mortgage amount that you might still owe on the house or the homes, and the total would be added to that box. If you have other investments such as trust funds, money market funds, mutual funds, CDs, stock options newly added to the list, Bitcoin is considered an investment, so you would include that as well. Bonds, Coverdale savings, installment, and land sales, and other commodities. and college saving plans. So if it's under the parent's name, the parent is the owner of the 529, then it would go under the parent's investment portion question. If it was under the student's name, then it would go under the student's investment question. If it's under a grandparent, aunt, or uncle, or very generous family friend, um, then it would go under the student's untaxed income, money received or paid on their behalf. Okay, so depending on who's the owner of the 529 plan would determine where that money would go into. Most often it's under the parent's name and would go under the parent's investment, which in hindsight is the more beneficial means of reporting that investment, because the parent's investment and income has a smaller percentage weight than if it were under the student's name. Because we know that parents' income and investments is going to need to last. Okay, for retirement, it will need to cover the expenses of the family, right? Versus the student, the student's priority is being a student. So they feel that a higher percentage is contributable and reasonably contributed to their cost of education. Okay. What is not an investment? The home you live in, the value of your life insurance, the value of your retirement plans. So that would be a 401k, your Roth IRAs, 403b, 457s, anything that is considered a retirement plan would not be included in the investment question. Okay. I see there are some other questions that have popped up. What is the parent if the parents are going through a divorce process, but bank accounts and assets are shared, what you would do is do a 50% distribution, right? So how much is your 50% value worth of those investments? Or how much is of your income are you putting into that savings account, and truly only indicate what is yours. Okay. How much of cross verification is done by the financial aid office? Will they know if you lowball? We want you to do your best estimate. If 1 out of every 3 students are selected for verification by the Federal Student Aid or California Aid Commission, and they ask that the financial aid office communicate with the student to notify them that they were selected for verification, and the student would then need to provide additional documentation to validate the information that was put on the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. So if there are updates that are needed, then of course we will update that. Now, if you won the lottery on Friday, you wouldn't have to report that until next year. Okay. If we can, as I mentioned, there are some special circumstance scenarios where we can adjust based on your situation. Is stock options part of the investment? Yes, unfortunately it is. If you were to cash out of that stock option, what would it be worth? I'm sorry, that is the federal definition of or one of the federal definitions of an investment. So you would have to include that. Do we need to report all 529 plans for the kids of the family, or just the graduating senior? Just the graduating senior. So if you have one plan that's for all of your children, you just divide it by the number of children, and then you can put that designated amount for your graduating senior. Okay, so I see there's another question about more than 10 colleges. So I'm going to push pause on answering that question, and I'm going to continue and answer that question in just about 2 more minutes. Okay, so now that we've answered the parent tax information and asset questions, now you're going to slide that keyboard or laptop back to the graduating senior, the student, to complete the application process. Okay, so students, we want to know if you also worked and filed taxes. So you would indicate either already completed, will file, or not going to file. If you select already completed, you would be prompted to answer the tax questions as well. And you can also use the IRS data retrieval tool to populate those questions on your behalf. Okay. If you indicated that you did work but not going to file, then you would just indicate how much you earned for the year. Okay. If you didn't work, that's even easier. You just put 0 in the box. Once you have answered those questions, you're almost done. The last question of the application, are you a paid preparer? You're going to say no. You are the student, you are the parent, you're doing this for free for yourself. Okay, if you do need help, feel free to attend one of the Cash for College workshops. We will have the workshop dates available for you, or you can contact me and I can set up a time to answer your questions and help you submit the application for free. Okay. You don't want to pay anybody to do this for you. It does not guarantee that it will be done correctly or on time. I've heard some really sad stories about that happening. So don't pay somebody else to do this for you. Utilize the resources that you have available. Will help you for free. Okay, so then you hit continue and you're almost done. There is a demographic survey. So as you might have noticed, we didn't ask about gender. We didn't ask some of the questions that we have in the past. Um, Selective service is no longer a requirement, but we still want to have some of this information available for our statistical history. Okay, so it does ask one time and one time only, what is your gender? Are you transgender? What is the ethnicity and race? Okay, you do have the option to decline to answer those questions, but you can be assured to know that if you choose to answer these questions, they are only for statistical purposes. They will not use these questions to determine EFC or eligibility for any of the programs. They will not share this information with the colleges until the next year when they've combined all of the statistics and given us a pie chart, basically, of the overall count of students who were male versus female or non-binary or transgender, and so on and so forth. So you can answer this demographic information if you would like to. Okay, it is not required. Okay, so last, they want you to read the terms and conditions and then hit I agree. And then we come to your electronic signature by clicking the bubble that says sign electronically with my FSA ID. And then we will ask the same of the parents. Okay. So we have before we can proceed with the signatures, we do have a few questions relating to the previous slides. If my daughter works, but she files as a dependent on the parents 1040, what do you do? So if the the daughter or graduating senior does not file their own separate tax return, then they would indicate will not file and indicate the dollar amount that they earned from work. Okay. Is income or savings account weighed more to determine need? Again, we're only looking at a percentage of the income and savings accounts to be calculated in the formula for the EFC or need. It's not weighed more, it's just a percentage, okay? If stock options, oh, excuse me, for stock options, it should only be vested options. Is that correct? Unvested, one can't cash them in. And if something happens to terminate employment, those unvested options would be lost. Unfortunately, it says stock options, whether vested or not. You would hypothetically look at the market value of that option and indicate that amount. So if for whatever reason there is a termination of employment and you no longer have access to those options, then you can then use the professional judgment packet or for special circumstances that I mentioned earlier, and you can contact the financial aid office to request that, and we can recalculate your EFC and financial need based on the current financial situation, basically removing that stock option amount from your formula and calculation. Um, so next question. At the point of tax filing, filed married jointly, then sadly husband passed away. 95% of the income was his. So what you would indicate is widowed, and then they would ask for just your information on the FAFSA, and you would put your remaining 5% of the income and information on the FAFSA application. If you submit the application, which we're going to do right now, we're going to give you an example that the student just signed, the parent signs, and types in their FSA ID and password. They select, I agree to the terms to continue. There is an option if you don't want to do the FSA ID and you can submit a signature. However, I don't recommend it. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to process. So if you want to do a signature page, you can do so. Okay, so just a little side note there. You will receive a confirmation page, as I mentioned earlier, and wait 48 hours to allow the processing of the application. Then the student can log back into the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, and they're going to click on make a correction. Okay. And this will enable you to, I'm going to go back, sorry. This will enable you to either add additional colleges. So you would remove the previous 10 to add any additional colleges. Or if you made a mistake on one of the other questions, you can do so at that point. Again, you would sign and submit. You're going to get a secondary confirmation page and an additional student aid report, okay, to confirm the changes that you made. Those changes will go to the colleges that you listed. So again, make sure that you have all of the correct information on the first 10 before you remove them to add any additional schools. So that way you're not having to make an additional transaction to send the former schools the correct information. Okay. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, California DREAM Act application, it's a different website for submittal for those students who are not yet US citizens or permanent residents, but they're the exact same questions. So I won't be going over that application again, but I did want to make a note. If you are submitting a California DREAM Act application, you want to accompany that with the submittal of an AB 540 affidavit to the admissions office so they can validate California residency to accept the DREAM Act application, as well as consider you for the in-state tuition and fees. Okay, so make sure that you do follow up with that if needed. Okay, as I mentioned, students, you will receive the student aid report as confirmation of the information provided. It will have your EFC on it as well, and it will give you some next steps. So basically, the information from that FAFSA or DREAM Act application will be sent to the colleges that you listed on the application only. Okay, then the colleges will begin to contact you after you've been admitted to their college and will provide you information about the award, or if you were selected for verification, how to submit those documents to confirm eligibility and award amounts. Okay, so students, you want to make sure that you're checking your emails frequently, at least once a week, in order to make sure that you're responding to the college's request. Now, if you are selected for verification, you don't want to send that verification information to all 10 schools or 30 schools that that you submitted the application to. You only want to submit it to the college that you will be attending. Okay. And then they will confirm your financial aid award package. This is a sample of that award. And we try to use the same template for all of the colleges. We call it a college financing plan, where we list your cost of attendance or budget, your EFC, and how much you need to attend to the school. And then we will list all of the awards that you're eligible for at our school, and then we'll tell you how much you're eligible for the year. And then we'll break it up between the fall and spring semesters, or if you're going to a quarter school, you might even see it the winter term. And then you can accept all the free money, and then you can decide if you want to accept the work study or student loan options. In this particular scenario, we were able to meet the student's entire need without having them request a student loan, and that is always the goal. Now, we will see EFCs range from a zero to $1 under $1 million, and we will award your student accordingly. But again, if there's any special circumstances or changes in your situation, then you can always contact the financial aid office of where your student will be attending, and we will do that recalculation process with you. Okay, so some things to consider, because we know things can change from year to year, month to month, day to day. So not just income and assets, but child support, the number of households. I had a surprise baby sister right before I graduated. um, if you have other children who are in a private or charter school, if you have medical or dental expenses that aren't covered by insurance, um, there's a lot of different things that can happen. So again, contact the financial aid office of where you will be attending. We're here to support you and help you, and we will do that recalculation with you. Okay, lastly, something students you will need to note, the colleges will be monitoring your academic progress, and you will need to maintain at minimum a 2.0 GPA, and you must complete at least 2/3 of the classes that you enroll in each semester in order to continue to benefit from financial aid. If for whatever reason you drop below those general requirements, the financial aid office will contact you to see how they can support you and provide some additional resources for you so that you can be a successful student at their college, because we don't want you to just come for the first semester. We want you to be able to stay with us and continue to grow and succeed in your academic endeavors. Okay. Oops, wrong way. Any additional questions that you might have for me? I know we've answered quite a bit of those questions. Some of those are very popular and get quite often, but if you have some personal questions you don't want to put in the Q&A, you can feel free to contact me by email. My email is elizabeth.ochoa@westvalley.edu. I'd be happy to respond to your questions. even if you're not coming to West Valley, again, I am a resource for you. So you can definitely contact me at any point. Um, we will be sharing the slides with you, and we can post them on Naviance for your reference. And
We'll
again,
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
post
go
them
ahead.
on we'll post them on the school's website by Friday, both the PowerPoint and the recording. Liz, I did have a question. I don't know if you could just speak a little bit, if you have the information, but on the initiative California for All.
Yes. So California for All, we are wanting to provide the resources to help all students go to college, and provide financial aid. So we do require that every graduating senior submit a FAFSA or DREAM Act application to satisfy the graduation requirements. And that will enable us to consider you for financial aid to ensure that you have access to attend college. And I can always refer to the bills if need be, in an email. But again, this is an opportunity for us to share information with you about financial aid. We don't want families to go with questions unanswered. We don't want you to have this belief that financial aid is only for the very low income or most needy populations or for only certain demographics. Um, we want all students to have that access. So again, this is one of the reasons why it's become a requirement to ensure that every student has access to the information and gets assistance with applying for financial aid. We want to close any gaps that a student might encounter from going to college.
And Branham will be hosting a Cash for College night on November 15th. It's a workshop, so it's open from 5 to 7 p.m. It will be in the cafeteria. We recommend that your students come with you to the cafeteria, as they should be the ones completing this application. If they can bring their Chromebooks so that there's no issues with getting on the internet. If they bring their home computers, that's where we see kind of an issue. And so again, we'll have that on November 15th from 5 to 7. So hopefully you can attend that. We will also be within their government and economics classes from this week. They will be getting an assignment to kind of start this process to help the students kind of complete these applications as, let me turn my camera on, but as it is now going to be with that initiative, we want to make sure that students are getting on this early. And so it's not, waiting until March 2nd to get it done. So in their Gov and Econ classes, they should see an assignment this week that'll be due on Monday or Tuesday of the following week. And essentially what that assignment is that they would either set up their FSAID for the student and the parent, and then they will just basically send a screenshot that that was done, or that they will create their account if they are doing the California Dream Act. And that's just to help students so that if they do come to the Cash for College night, that you're not wasting time getting that set up, that that's already done. And so then that way you can get help on the physical applications with the volunteers that would be there for that night. And that is what we have for you tonight. So if there's any last questions, please put them in the Q&A box. Otherwise, have a fantastic evening. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. I do see a question. Do you have to submit the FAFSA before applying to the private colleges to be considered for the merit aid? Yes, you want to submit the FAFSA and the CSS profile for any private colleges that you're considering so that you can be considered for both or for all of the various types of aid.
And thank you.
Can my son receive federal student aid loan even if our EFC is more than the cost of attendance? Yes, you can, through the unsubsidized loan. Is a CSS profile required for public schools? Typically, no. But you can refer to the CSS profile list of schools to see all the participating schools. Great questions.
If there's any last questions, we can take those for you. Otherwise, we are going to go ahead and end the night. I'm going to stop the recording at this point.